I'm Jamie Buckingham. Shalom from Israel. No story in the Bible so beautifully illustrates the subject of dominion as the one in Mark 4. Here, the biographer describes what happened that night on the Sea of Galilee, where Satan tried to kill Jesus in a terrifying storm. In our last session, I took you to the Mount of Temptation, where Jesus had his first encounter with Satan. He finally turned to him and said, "Away from me, Satan." And at that command, Satan had no choice but to turn and slink away. Luke, however, says that when the devil left him, it was until an opportune time. That opportune time came just a few days later after Jesus had called his disciples, most of them fishermen, who lived near the little town of Capernaum on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. One evening, just as it was getting dark, Jesus asked them to sail across the lake to a little community on the south shore, about 13 miles away. Follow me now down to the shore of the Sea of Galilee, where I'm going to talk for a few minutes about dominion, God's and ours. The Sea of Galilee is one of the most beautiful places on earth. The very name, Galilee, evokes all kinds of memories. Over there, Jesus told his disciples to lay aside their nets, that he would make them fishers of men. Someplace out there, Jesus walked on water. At other times, standing on the shore, he called his disciples and told them to lower his nets on the other side of the boat, and they did, and the catch was so great they could barely pull it in. But the story that sticks in everyone's mind is the story of that dark and stormy night when Jesus and his disciples were crossing the lake from Capernaum to the region of Gadara on the southern shore. It's hard to imagine this morning since the water is so smooth and peaceful, but this lake can, in an instant, become a death trap. The lake is surrounded on three sides by high mountains. Across the lake are the steep Golan Heights, which form the boundary between Israel and Syria. To the far north is the Upper Galilee. On the west, Mount Arbel, which towers some 2,000 feet above the surface of the lake. The south end opens on a plain through which flows the Jordan River down to the Dead Sea, the lowest place on the surface of the earth. Galilee, then, at 660 feet below sea level, is in the middle of a natural funnel, and when the wind blows off these surrounding mountains, it means instant waves, huge ones at that. It was after sundown that night when Jesus finished his teaching near Capernaum and got into one of these open fishing boats, rowed by his disciples, and asked them to take him to the other side of the lake, a distance of about 13 miles. "Let's go over to the other side," Jesus said. These fellows were tough seamen, these disciples, but that night when a furious squall came up and the towering waves began to break over the gunwales of the boat and they were nearly swamped, they were afraid. This was no ordinary storm. They sensed that Satan himself was trying to drown them. And yet, oblivious to the storm, Jesus was asleep in the stern of the boat, curled up on one of the fishing nets. The disciples couldn't believe that he could sleep through such a storm. "Master, don't you care that we drown?" Jesus got up and stretched himself and looked around at the storm and got up and stood and took authority over the waves. It was incredible. He literally spoke, or he shouted to the elements. He spoke as a drill sergeant would speak to a bunch of recruits, and he said, "Shut up!" Then turning to the waves, he said, "Sit down." These were the identical words he had used just the week before when he spoke to a demon who was trying to kill a man in Capernaum. Jesus had been teaching in the synagogue, and the demon had interrupted the service, causing the man to begin screaming. Jesus looked at the man and spoke at the demon. "Shut up," he said. Then he commanded the demon to come out, and the demon did come out. You don't speak to demons gently, asking them to please do something any more than you would be gentle with a striking rattlesnake. You speak with authority, and, if necessary, with violence. Jesus came to earth to restore man to his rightful place of dominion over all the elements. Dominion means being in charge of this world. Adam had dominion over the Garden of Eden, but he lost it when he sinned. He forgot that his authority came from God. Once a man begins to act as if he owns this world, as if he's his own boss, that he can do anything he wants, then he's no longer qualified to receive God's authority. God's authority is given only to those who submit their lives to Him. Jesus came to earth to restore us to our rightful place of authority and dominion. Dominion over evil, dominion over sickness, dominion over anything which would keep us from doing what God told us to do. The disciples were afraid because they had forgotten that Jesus had already set the course. He said, we're going over to the other side. You see, Satan cannot stop what God has set in motion, what God has ordained. Today, what are the storms battering against your life? Take dominion. Take the authority that God has given you in Jesus and say to those storms, in the name of Jesus, shut up, sit down, and then get on about your life with peace and joy.